Forget that. So welcome everybody to our Intertribal Education and Support Program for the month. And of course, it's National Nutrition Month. So I was very pleased when Kathy, Kyla, and Heather agreed to discuss some Indigenous food topics for us. So I'm just going to hand it over to them right away. They have the program ready for us today. So I'll let you guys do some introductions. And again, thank you guys for agreeing to be the leaders of what is a very important topic to all of us. So I will hand off to you guys.
Well, welcome everybody. And I'll go first. My name is Kathy Broughton. I'm registered dietitian with the Ho-Chunk Nation. Been here like 23 years, but really just in the last couple of years have really learned a ton about Indigenous foods. So that is what we're going to talk about today, and I will pass it off to Heather.
And hello, I'm Heather Druzak. I'm also one of the dietitians over at Ho-Chunk Nation, and I'm based in Black River Falls. So welcome.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kyla, also a registered dietitian for Ho-Chunk Nation. And I am actually located at our Baraboo Dells location, the House of Wellness.
And we have Natalie, an intern with us. She just started yesterday, so I'll let her introduce herself too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I'm a dietetic intern from Viterbo University in La Crosse, and today is my second day. And today we've just been outside in the process of making maple syrup.
So exciting.
Alex.
Yep. And I just want to let Alex introduce himself really quick as well.
Hello, everyone. I am also a dietetic intern from Viterbo University in La Crosse.
And welcome, Alex. So thank you all. And so we actually, as part of this presentation, we're excited to hear about Indigenous foods from other tribes that are important to the people on this call as well. So we don't know everything, believe me, we've been learning a lot. And so we're just kind of sharing what we've learned, what we've kind of been doing, some of the education that we've been trying to make here. So that's what we've been doing for a good part of the pandemic, is really been able to have more time to focus on learning these things. And when we talk about Indigenous foods, the way that we're defining them is kind of before colonization. So the foods that people ate before there was the flour, the oil, the fry bread, those kind of things. So those are the foods that we're really kind of focusing on here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to put it on. There it is. Okay. So can anybody maybe throw out what foods they see here? And you can do that verbally. I won't be able to see the chat right now, but the other thing, if people know how to do this, it's kind of fun when you look at the top toolbar where you see the screen sharing and you see user options in that black bar at the top of the screen. It would be kind of fun if these foods are important to you and your culture as well, to make a little stamp by the pictures. So what you do is you go under user options, and then there's a drop down. So just click on user options, use the drop down, select annotate, and then you can select like stamp, draw, text, and make any kind of little mark by the, oh, I see someone's already got a yellow star. Awesome. And Sherry, and it even puts your name there too. So awesome. So go ahead and number one, can anyone throw out what those foods are on the screen? This is just kind of a few that I put on here, but can anybody just throw some of them out?
Well, I know we all see wild rice.
Okay, so and several people are stamping that one. Awesome.
The top left, I think, is milkweed blossom, and you would make soup with that, right?
Yeah. Yep. Milkweed. Yep. So what are some of the others?
I see the pine needle tea or white pine tea. I'm not exactly sure the right.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly. Yep. That's exactly. Yep. Something that a lot of people don't know about that we kind of recently learned about. What about the upper right? That's kind of going on right now.
Maple syrup.
Yes. Yep. We'll come back to that in a sec. What about the lower right? What is that? Anybody know?
Is that dried squash?
Yep. So butternut, winter squash of some kind. We did butternut. We did a couple different kinds, but we strung them up and dried them. Probably not exactly how it was done in the old days, but you know, sort of a modern version of it. And so you can see that squash is dried and it will make a hard sound when you knock two pieces together, and it's totally hard and dry. So it stores well. What about lower left? I know that one you're probably not going to know, but anyone have a guess?
Venison?
Yeah, and this is actually bison. So it surely could have been venison, but this one is actually bison. And then the one next to the wild rice. Anybody, can you see that one okay?
I think those are hazelnuts drying.
You're right that it's drying. It's drying on a screen outside. It's actually corn. So the like Indian corn, the colorful corn. And so it looks like a lot of other people too noted that these foods are important to them. And I thought it would be really fun, being that this is prime maple syrup season. And Heather is just going to tell a little bit about what we've been doing like right now with maple syrup.
Oh, I wish I had some pictures from earlier today, but right outside our community health building over here in Black River Falls, our supervisor, John Greendeer, has helped us in basically setting up a maple sugar bush camp. So we've got the traditional fires going with, you know, basically sticks in a pot and boiling sap out there. And then we also have, okay, I always say it wrong, arch boiler. And so it's a more of a contemporary thing, but it heats up really fast. And so we're also boiling sap that way too. So, and we're just gonna keep on going today. So hopefully we'll get some visitors over here. And if anyone's on John's Facebook, look it up, because I think he's broadcasting from that occasionally throughout the day. But yeah, really fun and a good learning experience for sure.
And we'll have materials out there too, handouts on different recipes, you know, using maple syrup and the, you know, some of the products that you can make with it and information about it. And of course, it's a ton of physical activity to chop that wood and, you know, collect the sap and carry the bucket. So it's very physically active. And so we kind of encourage, you know, people using it, you know, thankfully and sparingly, as, you know, as that every drop is precious. It's like liquid gold. It's delicious and it is a lot of work to make it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go back to the screen share and go to the next page here. So I was wondering if there are people on other tribes here, if they could kind of let us know, like, about Indigenous foods that are important to them. I would really love it if on the screen, or if you're not sure how to use the annotate feature, if you don't see the user options at the top where you can click that and select annotate and then select text, or probably text if you're going to write something on here. You can always put it in the chat and we'll keep an eye out for that and we'll do it ourselves, or you can tell us verbally and we'll do it as well. So does anybody want to share foods that are important to their tribe, and even share the tribe that they're from? Corn, beans, and squash. Awesome. The three sisters right there. What tribe are you from?
From Oneida.
Okay. Very cool. So you probably dry corn too, and dry with
Yes.
the husks. Okay.
Corn, so corn soup, corn mush, cornbread.
Lots of good stuff. Anyone else have anything to put? Oh, Lake Superior whitefish, important to the Red Cliff Band. Yes. I've been to the UP and we've had whitefish. Yeah, so that one's really good too. Really delicious. Corn soup, corn mush, cornbread, all the corn products. Is there a certain way that you grind the corn? Okay, anybody else? I'm gonna take a peek at the chat. Okay, well, anything else? Not too much else? Okay, well, we'll go on then. And so what I thought we would do at this point is kind of look at a video. Our supervisor made a video I felt was really inspiring, and I thought we could have a discussion kind of based on that video. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share a video. I think what I have to do is go here and oh yeah. I had it all pulled up. It's just, can one of you guys, if you can get it too. I had it, but now my thing is full screen and can't find where to get it. Oh, here, okay. There it is. Okay, I got it. So here, and then you can you see and hear it?
Can I get a bacon cheeseburger and
Does it come from Earth? Does it come from a factory? Does it just feed you?
We didn't see it at 25, did we? No, that's no match for you, and we go back to Marla.
Okay. So what does anybody think about that video? What kind of thoughts have you had when you see that? Anybody have any reactions or?
I was always told when you enjoy the food that you plant, harvest, grow, because there's stories behind it, the stories attached to that food, and you're more appreciative, grateful. So I like that saying, nourish your soul.
It's important, isn't it, that, you know, it's more than just food to us, right? To Indigenous people, it is nourishment to our soul, and you know, it's so important that way. So that's a good example of a teaching that I'm glad you shared that, because we're going to touch on that just a bit. Does anybody else have any reactions to that video and thoughts?
And feel free to use the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself, or else just join the conversation at any point.
Hi, Sunshine.
Oh, I enjoyed that video. I thought it was very enlightening to see, you know, the traditional ways that people are using their food and harvesting their own foods. And then also at the same time, you know, with the processed foods and the McDonald's and the fast food, and how that like implements, and just two, you know, completely opposite views of the video. And I like the, you know, I love kids and their little voices, so that just makes you feel better too, and also gives you like a perspective from a children's point of view as well, on, you know, you have to teach them on what's the good things that you can put into your body, and to feed not only yourself, but, you know, the people around you that you care about. And I'm curious to hear, you know, what you all who are presenting, how that video made you feel as well, being dietitians. Thank you.
Definitely, I felt like it's really inspiring. I've used the video a lot, and I really imagine that it really touches people in their soul, and really can be motivating, I feel like. And that's kind of why I really like that video. Does anybody find that motivating or inspiring to try to eat more, I guess, indigenously?
I'll just chime in and say, I think as a dietitian, in our role that we have specifically, we've really spent the last couple of years here trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between like standard nutrition education and targeting that education towards our population and our community. And so I think this video really kind of helps provide a connection between that. It really shows, the video is really trying to show like nourish your body, nourish your soul, and you can do that through cultural foods and indigenous foods. And so I think the video is a good representation of, the avenue that we've been trying to pursue the last couple of years.
And I think that piece of, nutrition, of course, is so important, but just that emotional piece is so very important. And I know that we're trying to, kind of help that a little bit as well, getting people, thinking about those healthier foods and how they really do help our soul and nourish our soul. Any other thoughts? Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation. Yeah, I just have to figure out how to. Oh, here, I got it in there. That's what I needed to do. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Okay, so we kind of did that. I don't think anybody else had any comments to have, that they could note on the screen or in the chat or verbally. I think we kind of talked about that already. So I guess I will just go on. So here is like the big question, right? How can people, use those indigenous foods? How do you think they can kind of reconnect with their history and help them eat well? Does anybody have thoughts on that, using those indigenous foods, indigenous food ways? Does anybody have thoughts on that?
I know now although COVID was devastating, I know now, like in our community, I'm from Lac du Flambeau, so our community has been very big on including young people and reconnecting them to harvesting, as far as, if we go, get a deer, or I've seen a lot of kids now are really involved in muskie spearing, which before it was kind of like very limited to a certain amount of adults that would do it. Now we're kind of showing the youth how to do that. So when they get older, they're able to provide. And like with COVID, a lot of people reconnected with the culture, and we did a lot of berry picking, a lot of harvesting. Just, it was amazing to see the change. And now, kids are interested in doing that again. I know for a while it was like the disconnection was there. Not a lot of people wanted to be involved in culture, and now it's kind of becoming a bigger thing.
Definitely. So passing it down to the younger generation, is your findings really important, and they're more interested to learn those things too, which is definitely a good thing. Awesome. Anybody else?
In Oneida, we had I think it was a 3-year grant through the USDA. My aunt was part of one of the leaders of it, and they would take 10 to 12 families and start from, planting and harvesting, and then preserving, like canning corn, hunting, processing, freezing, anything, fish. They did excellent program, because a lot of people I work with, young moms, want to learn these ways and do these things, but have nobody to teach them. So that was an excellent program we had. And of course, COVID cut it a year short. And I believe it's being utilized in a different manner in our community. I'm not too sure, but that was a really, really great program, I think, for any Native community, because they want to learn. We know what's good for them. They just need, some guidance, and the materials, that the processors that they bought, and all the, just think of the, equipment, kitchen equipment that is needed to do all this. So that was really, really excellent.
So education that whole way along from planting to preserving. That sounds awesome. Anybody else have anything to add?
I've actually been, I'm from Oneida, Wisconsin, and I've been learning more from the youth, as in like from my niece and my sister. And my sister, she's a teacher with the immersion group, the Harinakwa Nest group. And so they use as much language as they can as possible. And they'll go out to the woods and they're doing tapping right now, maple tapping. And before, like when they would do picking berries, like my niece, she would speak in the language to me, telling me what's what and showing me everything. So I've been learning from the youth more so me being able to teach them. So I felt like that was a really nice and encouraging thing and something that I wanted to implement with my daughter and just kind of make stronger.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that family connection, learning from each other, whether it's kids learning from adults or adults learning from kids, that's just great family time too. Anybody else have anything? Okay, I'm gonna go back here and go on to the next. So this might be sort of obvious, I suppose, but anybody have any thoughts here? How do you think connecting with your indigenous foods as tribal people will help people be healthier in whatever way, that speaks to you? Is it only just physical health, or is there other health that could come into play?
I think, participating in, gathering these tribal foods and also just eating them in feast style, because usually when we gather, we'll have like a smaller feast and it's more family involved. So it often like reconnects family. It leaves room to kind of like, I guess, invest in that time. And then as well, like it kind of keeps us in the hobby of eating together instead of like doing other stuff. And I mean, and it provides healthier foods instead of like, we're all going to go to McDonald's after and like gather. So, or eat some food there. So it's like kind of tied us into more culturally to be reconnected. And then like, I mean, the physical work, you're just so tired afterwards. You're just like, whoa. So it's like, you don't have time to kind of focus on other stuff. You got to focus in the time, and then you don't realize all the physical work you're doing until after. And so I feel like it reconnects you, and then it like takes away the time of having to go and buy fast food or something like that, because you're just so full off of whatever you gathered. I don't know if that. Oh, sorry.
No, that's great. I'm curious what's an example of something you gathered?
I know when we do like maple syrup tapping, it's a lot of work. I mean, it just depends on the site, and even like, so because we're kind of still have the ice frozen. I know when we gather like, or when we go muskie spearing, I mean, it's tedious, like chopping a hole and then having to drag everything out, put them all there. And then even just when we do spear muskie, like even it's tedious to pull it out of the hole and then make sure it's there and then have to move it around. So like that's usually a lot of work. And then like afterwards we got to clean them and we got to, get them all ready to go. Sometimes we'll eat them the same day, or we'll have to, bag them. When we do eat them, we just have all this other food incorporated and we're just like, whoa, okay. So that's kind of like the end of the day is eating at what we gathered and what we, collected. So that's one of the foods that I know that it takes a lot of time, but in the end, like it's nice to have that, that activity to, I mean, I don't know. Sorry. It's
No,
been a crazy day, so I'm like losing my words here.
but that family time is awesome too.
I know it really tied our family together, and I mean, I'm 23 and I just learned how to clean a muskie like 2 years ago. So it's kind of funny, like as someone explained, they're learning from the youth. That's kind of how I felt, because I have younger relatives that are sitting there and just like, it's like a secondhand job for them, that I mean, they just know all what to do and how to do it without being told. So it's kind of like, it's pretty awesome to see.
And I'm curious, like, how do you preserve them? Do you do anything there?
So we usually just clean them and then we freeze them. So that's how like I said, either we cook it that day, or oftentimes we like to poach it. So like we would boil water and then add the fish, and it will kind of like flake when it's done. So that's one way we eat them. And then like preserving, we just usually fill them, we clean them, cut them in smaller fillets, and then we fill them in a water bag, and then we freeze them that way. I know some people have pickled muskie this year, so that's been pretty interesting. I didn't know you could do that until this year. So and then we can either smoke them. So there's quite a few different styles of preparing it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That was super interesting. We didn't know anything about that. Yeah. And does anybody else have anything to share as far as how these Indigenous foods or Indigenous foodways can help them be healthier in whatever way, that comes to mind?
Hello again. I think that, the Indigenous foodways and everything is just a good way to decolonize as well. So ingesting those Indigenous foods, growing them, showing your children how to plant them and harvest them is definitely another form of decolonization.
Definitely. Yep. And carrying those traditions on, those important traditions. Sounds good. Definitely. Anybody else have any last thing to add there?
I think to highlight something Candy had said earlier is that food always also connects you to other things within culture. So I know she mentioned storytelling, and I know that's always been a huge part for me, is that storytelling and meal times all kind of go together. You learn even about the traditions. I know there's stories about how we discovered wild rice, and stories about the Three Sisters Garden. So I think it brings together some of the other cultural components that our cultures really thrive on or have really brought forward. And I think storytelling is one of those. So I think they just all kind of come together. And, as far as making you healthier, reconnecting to some of those things is just a way to do that mentally, physically. Everything is kind of part of that culture.
Emotionally, even, I could see, definitely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing that. Totally agree. I'm going to go back ahead to the next slide. And so we are dietitians, so we did have a couple of nutrition slides in here, and you can see there's bison on the left and the ground beef on the right. This is the 70% lean. So what do you notice visually about the difference between the bison and the beef in appearance wise? Like, what looks different about that?
The bison is much more red.
Yeah. Does anybody know what that means or why that is? And then you can even look at the numbers below. Nobody really likes to look at numbers, but if you notice, like if you look at the fat content, you see the fat is much lower. So this is going to make about a 3-ounce cooked burger, maybe like the size of a deck of cards. And so you can see the fat 6 grams in the bison, whereas in the ground beef, 34 grams of fat. So the reason that it looks much redder is, of course, it's much leaner, it has much less fat, whereas the beef has a lot more fat, so it doesn't look as, strikingly red and lean. And then because the fat is much lower over here in the bison, then the calories are significantly lower, like half the calories of the ground beef. And so this is just an example of a great way that we can help people, protect themselves from things like diabetes, heart disease, by picking these leaner meats, these indigenous meats that are so much better than the commercialized, domesticated kinds of meats. And the protein and things are still the same. The carbs, there's no really difference there. So it's less fat, it's less calories, and ultimately less, more healthier that way. And I'll share one more like this. So you see, we've got wild rice on the left, we've got white rice on the right. What do you notice about the nutrition there? Does anybody see anything that kind of jumps out at them?
The fiber.
Yeah. And does anybody know what fiber does for us? Everybody knows it helps with our digestion, but does anybody know like some other benefits of fiber, why it's so important?
Hey everybody, this is Martine. I'm originally from Bad River, but now I work for the State Department of Health Services. And but yeah, this has been a great presentation. I love these kinds of discussions. And fiber. I was a nutrition educator for a number of years, and I remember making this sign that just said "focus on fiber," because after a while reading about fiber, I realized that all the foods that are high in fiber are the ones that are going to be the most health promoting, and are going to be good for disease reversal or management. And that if you just focus on fiber, you'll pretty much be okay, as long as it's coming from like a whole food. And so one of the things that I learned about fiber is that it feeds our entire, because it's non-digestible, it goes all the way through our GI tract. And along the way, it gets broken down by gut microbes into what are called short chain fatty acids. And those short chain fatty acids end up, they help our bodies both to, they create hormones, and those hormones go throughout our body and they turn off inflammation. They also can turn into, they're like basically like the foundational elements for the neurochemicals like serotonin that make us feel good. And in fact, like 90% of our serotonin is created in our guts, but only from fiber, right? If you had a diet that was void of fiber, then you're going to run into some serotonin issues. You may run into some like issues with depression and things like that. So it plays a huge role in our mental health and of course our physical health.
Very true. Thank you, Martine. Thank you. That was really comprehensive and excellent. And it's so true. I mean, and just feeling filled up. I mean, everybody wants to feel filled up. And, just one other thing fiber does is it fills us up. And you can see in the wild rice, which is, less processed than the white rice, the fiber is 6 times higher. The carbs are even actually lower for someone who has diabetes. So that might be another, point that's a benefit. The calories are lower. And the protein is actually even a little bit higher, and that can even help with our satiety and feeling full and satisfied with our meals. So just a wealth of benefits to getting fiber, but getting more of those indigenous, especially plant foods that give us fiber, and thinking of things like corn and hominy and squash and berries, and the gathered greens that people did. All those plant foods will give us fiber and really keep us healthy and free from diabetes and heart disease, where we all want to be. I guess I'll move on. So on this slide, we talked already about how indigenous foods and foodways help people connect with the wisdom of their culture and help them eat more of the foods that really keep them healthy, that are meant to keep them healthy. But we also know it's maybe not as easy to do that these days, or we forget to do it. So these are just a few ideas of how people might, even more reconnect with some of their indigenous foods or foodways. These are just some of the ideas that we had, and I know several of them were already mentioned. Like passing the knowledge down, making it part of your lifestyle, like doing the muskie spearing or the maple syrup, making from the sap, which is, that's a huge amount of work and time. So just kind of making it part of the family lifestyle and having that family time together. Of course, I know growing food was mentioned, growing and preserving, gathering, again was mentioned, and I'm sure, the fishing we also talked about, hunting, I'm sure many people do that. And even just simple things like if for some people they can't do some of those things, maybe they're not able to go out and, go hunting or gather wild rice or haul sap buckets. Maybe there's even simple little things that they can do, like drinking water and breastfeeding their babies, indigenous milk medicine, like we all talk about here. Thank you, Sherry. And even simple things like making teas. And then the teachings that came into play, the storytelling, that's one that's not on here, but that was mentioned. Does anybody have any other teachings that are not on here besides the storytelling, or maybe respect or gratitude for food, or not getting too full? Does anybody have any other teachings that their tribes have that would be a good thing to mention there?
Hey, this is Martine again. This wasn't something that I did personally, but I know that in my community, when a young woman is going to have her first moon, her menarche, her first period, that as she's transitioning into womanhood, that there's a berry fast for the whole year, and so it's food plays a role in this regard in terms of these transitional periods in our lives, going from different stages in our lives, and this one in particular for young women. So I thought that in addition to storytelling, in addition to gatherings, that it's also like this it plays a role in its absence, right? And at least berries in particular play a role in the transitions between life stages sometimes too. And I don't know like how exactly that would fit into the slide, but it seems like that would be something to add to it.
Traditional teachings kind of is what you're saying, I think. Okay. Any others that you can think of, any other teachings that would be helpful to share, like in regards to food, that could be helpful for the health of the community, that anyone can think of?
I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but there's actually a story that we tell about maple syrup. And just to paraphrase, basically, it used to be much easier to have maple syrup. You could just tap the tree and it would just run into. And so in one of our stories, the character in there would sit underneath the tree and just tap and just let it drip into his mouth, just lay there lazily. And so the story is that the creator decided that was not what he wanted for his people. He wanted them to work hard and be active and move. And so that's why we have to do the process you guys were talking about earlier, where you have to boil things and haul things. And so it's kind of a way of, I think, connecting this in a little, and maybe a bit of a stretch, but I think that just reminding us to be more aware, and to that we have to work for our food, and to be mindful of what we do eat and how much we eat.
Yeah, that's perfect. That connection between our food and our physical activity, right? All the work that was done in the past to obtain food. And then, because it is so much work, like the maple syrup, consuming it mindfully and, probably somewhat sparingly to make it last, and very thankfully for all the hard work that went into it. So yeah, I think that's perfect. Any others before we move on, any other teachings that would be good to share that you know?
I know the men in the community usually do a tobacco burning before maple syrup, before, each season, opening it up and giving thanks and before taking anything from Mother Earth.
That thankfulness, right? Just the thankfulness, the gratitude, the respect for those gifts. It's very important. Okay.
I feel like it also teaches community. Like if there's a pregnant woman in the community, typically like her husband can't be hunting or anything like that. He's not supposed to be killing anything. So, other members, other men, or whoever's hunting would think of them and bring them deer or, turkey or anything like that. So just to be thoughtful. And when you're berry picking, you're picking for also those who can't, and, being able to deliver that to them.
Wow, that was great. Taking care of the other community members because they couldn't do those things. That's awesome. That was a great thing to share. That's perfect. Any other ones that anybody wants to share? Those. Okay, well, we'll see what we have next. And so here, actually, I'll just show, we had done a couple videos just to kind of share some of the things that we had done, just kind of share some education. So I will go ahead and share one of them. And I believe I have the sound on, so please tell me if I don't, but I believe I do. So I'm going to go ahead and share that.
Hello, I'm Heather with Ho-Chunk Nation's Health and Wellness Division, and today we are making a winter harvest meal. I'm very excited for you to join us. And just to kind of tell you what's on deck today, what we've got is a cha roast, or venison or deer roast. And what we're doing is we are braising it in a small amount of liquid to really soften up that meat, tenderize it, and because we still want a tender meat, but we also want a lean meat, so the game meat fits that bill perfectly. Next, we will also have some baked winter squash with our own harvested wild rice side dish. And then we'll throw in some oranges left over from the wild rice dish, as well as some carrots and onions that were thrown in with the roast to give it some extra good juice and nice sweet flavor. And finally, some pine needle tea. It's a great winter beverage, and it's actually very high in vitamin C, so it's a great time to enjoy it in the winter. So hope you have fun and come along. And then we're just going to season with some salt and pepper. If you're watching your sodium intake, definitely watch how much salt you use. The reason they're in nice big chunks is so, I'm going to use some toothpicks here, so it'll keep in some of that moisture, just because venison and other game roasts are so lean, and so it's a good way to add the moisture that they don't normally have in fat. We've got some carrots. And you can put other veggies in here. The reasons I've got onions and carrots is they've got a lot of nice juice and also a little sweetness, and that'll all soak into the roast. And then literally just a cup or two of water. I used 2 cups today just because, again, this roast is bigger, so we need a little more liquid. And basically you'll put in the oven and check it every now and then to add some more water. And in 4 to 5 hours, you should have a delicious, lean, but nice and juicy roast. So we've cut and seeded out a squash. You just place it cut side down for 30 to 60 minutes in the oven.
It's rinsing the wild rice to get any dirt or debris out.
And then we'll put in our lovely wild rice harvested, and it was a lot of fun doing this. So if you ever get a chance, I highly recommend it. All right, all the liquid is absorbed and the rice is nice and fluffy. I see quite a few split kernels here, so that should be really nice texture. And then we're gonna stir in our apples and onions and orange zest here. These are white pines. You can usually tell them they've got sets of 5 in their needle sets. And basically, make it easy on yourself. Just cut the tops off. We'll get them rinsed up. And then put about a handful for about 3 cups of liquid. All right, it's boiling. So we're gonna turn that off. We're just going to do the steeping technique. And then also, I forgot to mention, you can leave them whole or you can cut them in half, whatever's easier for you.
Does anybody do their roast differently or make? Oh.
You're good.
We can see
Y'all like pancakes, waffles, and you like French toast. But this week, I'm gonna show you guys just how easy it is to make.
Okay, get that guy out of there. Okay, so anybody else make any other teas besides pine needle tea?
I know this last year for Snap Ed, we made sumac tea. So, I mean, I just like gotta be cautious, make sure it's not poisonous sumac. But we had like we have a whole roll here at Glitzy. So, I mean, originally we were just gonna chop them just for our garden, but then we like kind of noticed that you can make using the Minnewissen dot book from Glyphic. They made sumac tea, so we kind of just like followed the recipe, and it was really good. Actually, it was super good.
Sumac is everywhere, and those bright red cones. I mean, that's pretty much. It's pretty easy to identify, and you see it all around. So, yeah, that's a good one. Any other teas that anybody makes?
Sunshine put one in the chat.
Oh, bergamot. Oh, yeah. Yes, we haven't done that, but we did hear that you could do that. So like the wild bee balm kind of flower. Do you use the flowers or the leaves? Anybody know? Oh, both. Okay. All right. All right. Well, cool. And I do have one other short video to share. This one's only 1 minute, and then we'll kind of wind down. I got it. I should have it all ready to go. Well, definitely trying to make sure I stop that. No, I didn't.
Sophie put an awesome recipe in the chat.
Brands that lift our communities.
Oh, one second.
There, okay. Okay. So that was an example, speaking of fiber, of a high fiber dish using those indigenous foods like butternut squash, hominy, and beans. And, they can be, canned and rinsed, or like the butternut squash I used was frozen, so it can be very convenient as well. Wish I could claim it, one of our team. Oh, so somebody makes that dish, or in Menominee? Is that what you mean, Sophie?
The tea recipe, a couple chats above.
Oh, I missed it. Oh yeah, okay. Missed it, yep. Oh, lots more teas. Singer tea, slippery elm, licorice, cinnamon chips, echinacea. Oh my gosh. Wow.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah, we didn't know about any of those. So that's awesome. So thank you for sharing. So as we kind of wrap up, we just have a few moments left. I'm just gonna, I think I can go back to my presentation here and go back here. No, I think I closed it out. But any last thoughts at all as far as when we wrap up? Did anybody get anything out of this session? Did you get any new ideas or anything you'd like to try, or any last things you'd like to share?
I found a new recipe. Thanks, Sophie.
Try one of those new teas. Anybody else at all? Are there ways that, I know it's like harvesting wild rice, for example, in the video, the first video might be difficult for just everybody to do, but are there other things that you've thought of or wanted to try to include more indigenous foods or indigenous foodways? Maybe just haven't gotten around to it yet, but are there thoughts that you've had? Okay, well, I know a lot of you are already doing really great things. Wow, it was awesome to hear what everybody's doing, and thank you for sharing, and we learned a ton. So hopefully it was kind of fun to talk about it and just kind of share all that good wisdom and knowledge. Oh, using more winter squash and wild rice. Yeah, those are good ones. And does anybody have any tips on using more squash and wild rice that they could share? Getting the access sometimes is the thing, isn't it? As Candy mentions.
I like that you mentioned the frozen, you can do frozen butternut squash, or a lot of times now grocery stores have them already chopped up for you. You can just get a bag yourself and kind of take away some of the work of peeling or whatever. So that's definitely an easy way of doing it.
So maybe some convenience things, buying pre-cut butternut squash or frozen. Has anyone thought more about gardening? Has that been something that people have tried to pull in to kind of increase access a little bit, or farmers markets or things like that? Or buying locally, I suppose, for wild rice if you're in the area. And Sophie mentions her grandpa used to soak his rice overnight before cooking it. Is that just to help it cook more evenly, or was there any reason behind that? To cook easier. Yeah, I suppose cook more evenly, like same thing like with beans, probably why you would soak beans before cooking them, make them cook easier. Okay. So yeah, definitely those are great foods to use. More squash, more wild rice, more even hominy, more corn, all of those great things that are just full of fiber, excellent plant foods. Anything else that anybody wants to wrap up with or share a final thought? Okay. Well, hopefully you got something out of this, and it was just fun sharing and hearing. So I thank you all for joining, and we'll look forward to next time.
And thank you, Kathy, Kyla, and Heather. I really loved your materials. The work you guys are putting out with the videos and things are amazing. I'm really happy to see those, and we'll probably be stealing those for some of our own use here. But thank you guys, really appreciate it. I think the discussion was great, and really enjoyed hearing about other people's traditions and how they use Indigenous foods. And thank you guys for participating in the call, and watch out for more. You know, we're trying to do these regularly, so watch out for new things coming. And again, thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys, Kathy, Kyla, and Heather, for presenting, and we'll see you next time.
See you.